from Amy Curtis on Twitter that I saw. It said, here's why the government is going to bail out SBV but won't send disaster aid to Ohio. And you can see an image showing California as very blue. Well, you can't really see it because of the way it's cropped on screen. There you go. And then you have this image, which is Ohio being like all red and East Palestine being, over here in the eastern Ohio. So a lot of this does absolutely feel like a combination of elitism and partisanship. The fact that Joe Biden got up at 9 a.m, first thing, and said your money is safe. But when a train exploded, spraying toxic chemicals, they burn and toxic chemicals are everywhere. It's getting in the water. Fish are dying. The governor says a plume of chemicals is flowing down the river into West Virginia, nowhere to be found. It tells you who butters their bread, who they're serving, and who they're concerned about.
Of course.
When I look at things like this, and then we had that Jane Fonda thing. Did you guys see the Jane Fonda thing last week?
Hanoi Jane talking.
She said on The View that she was asked, we have to fight for pro-choice, whatever. And then Joy Behar was like, well, short of protesting and voting, what do we do? And she said murder. And then someone was like, wait, what did you say? And she goes, murder. And then I went, no, she's joking. So the way I see it is all signs are indicative of systemic collapse, whether the bond market is correct or not in the previous segment, that it's going to collapse, whether the banking thing, two of the biggest collapse in history happening back to back. And they're seeming like one's in California, one's in New York. Are they related? All I got to tell you is hyperpolarization, hyperinflation. Maybe not hyperinflation, but inflation's ridiculously high. Now banking collapses and people on TV saying psychotic extremist things. How is Drew, you're the expert, I guess, or you're the one selling a product. Do you think we're on the verge of some kind of major collapse, and should people, I don't want to say be worried, but should they be prepared?
I think a recession is likely. I don't think a banking collapse is coming.
But what about, I mean, beyond that, I mean, when you're looking at the weaponization of government, when you're looking at people on TV calling for murder, whether it's a joke or not, we're seeing violence in the streets. We're seeing 150 far leftists storm a government facility in Georgia and burn it up. Then you've got the January 6th stuff where they're saying the FBI was destroying evidence. It doesn't feel like this system, whether it's financial or political, exists anymore. It seems more like a smoldering pit.
Well, we track 50, we call them threats or trigger events that could lead to a collapse, but you're only talking about one of them, and that's something like a financial collapse or something that really triggers a civil war. If there's a banking collapse, that doesn't mean there's loss of law and order. But if people start doing civil unrest and law enforcement goes, then you've got a collapse where you worry about the things we worry about, which is people going out looting, stealing, killing, and it's not safe to live here. I mean, that's just one of 50 events. We have more things to worry about than that, I think, that are more likely to get us.
What do you got?
Like avian flu is the one that I'm very concerned about right now. Our electric grid is probably my number 2 biggest concern, the fragility of that.
Electric grid.
I think that's likely to kill us off before collapse from a banking collapse.
I've got a bunch of stuff on the bird flu, but let's talk about the electric grid first. What about the grid has you worried?
It's been vulnerable, and we've known about it for decades, and the government has done nothing to fix it. It's vulnerable not just from the physical, terrorist attacks you've heard about in recent months. It's vulnerable from natural causes, solar flares. Electromagnetic pulse from a solar flare can take down the grid. It's done it before.
The reason why I said we'll talk about this one first is because you've heard the stories that are going around where extremists are attacking substations.
It's not the first time. They did an attack on the Metcalf grid, a decade almost ago, and we knew about it, and it was a professional kind of a test run. This is well done. Look up the Metcalf attack on the grid. It was done years ago. We investigated. It was a professional group that did it. It was like a dress rehearsal. I don't know if Russia or China or who was behind it, but They did a professional
Metcalf
attack on the grid years
attack.
Ago.
In 2013.
And, this is old stuff, just like the threat of EMP. We've known about it for decades.
Whoa. Check this out.
And no one talks about it.
Let me read this. On the morning of April 16, 2013, a team of gunmen using rifles opened fire on the Metcalf transmission substation, severely damaging 17 transformers. And they said it was sophisticated. And what was the reason for them doing it?
It was a test to see if they could take it down. And the thing is, you don't have to take down, there's thousands of these stations, but there's critical nodes. And if you take down, 10 or 12 critical nodes, you can take the whole grid down. And the worst thing is, without getting into too much details, you need to watch a documentary. Grid Down, Power Up explains this 100 times better than what I'm going to do in the next 30 seconds. But you do a coordinated attack on the grid. It could be a cyber attack. It could be solar flares. If there's a surge in the grid, it destroys these transformers, these big giant devices, and it takes you months to replace a few of them. If a lot of them are destroyed, the electric grid is down for a year under good conditions or more. And we've known about this, and there's 5 different ways this could happen. Cyber attack, physical attack, solar flares, electromagnetic pulse. I'm forgetting the 5th. Again, watch this documentary, Grid Down, Power Up. Our grid is highly vulnerable. It's our Achilles heel. If North Korea wants to destroy the United States, they can do it. They got an ICBM that can reach here. They do not need a lot of nuclear weapons. They don't need accuracy at all.
Well,
1 or 2 high in the atmosphere over the U.S., and you destroy our electric system. The electromagnetic pulse destroys our system for over a year.
for the whole country?
For the whole country, for most of the United States.
North Korea has weapons that can do that.
Yep, they're low yield. See, their nuclear weapons have all kinds of effects: thermal radiation, A-alpha radiation, beta. They're optimized to do maximum EMP yield. The Russians work with them to do that.
Wow.
And this has been published. Open source, it was intelligence agencies, but they published open source saying that the Russians helped North Korea develop their nuclear weapons for maximum EMP effect. Because North Korea is never going to build, a first strike capability on our huge nuclear system, but they only need 1 or 2 inaccurate, high in the atmosphere explosions over the U.S., and the grid is down for over a year. And in that time, according to a congressional study, led by a former CIA director, a former Navy admiral, their estimate was that when this happens, you could lose 90% of the U.S. population. There's no economic production. There's no gas flowing. There is no municipal water systems. You'll have no water in this house.
We will.
No, you won't.
Yeah, we will.
You're on a municipal water system?
No, we're not.
Okay, you may.
Yeah, see,
I'm sorry, I thought you were still in the city here.
We are not. No, are you kidding? We got to climb a mountain to get here.
90% of Americans are in cities or suburbs. They'll have no municipal water system, and you'll die in that 90 years from either from starving to death or from people going out stealing for food and marauding.
Everybody who comes here, they're like, I had to drive up a strange winding mountain road to get here. We're elevated several hundred feet, like we're up a mountain. And we have well water and 2 local water sources. Now, for the new place we're setting up, we actually have a ton of backup power. And here we have miniature solar here. So we have this big, massive battery, and then we have a bunch of really small batteries that are portable. And then they have solar panels that you actually have to physically lay out and position properly. Mm-hmm. Not easy to do. At the new property we're setting up, we have installed professional solar with a ridiculous amount of backup batteries. So the amount of power generated from the sun exceeds the amount that the batteries drain. Mm-hmm. So as long as you're operating through the day, only at night does it power down, but then it immediately goes back to full as soon as the sun comes up. Not perfect. Absolutely not perfect. I'd probably be comfortable if I use one of the streams to create a water wheel power generator of some source, or just a bike, some kind of way to get power. Because you're half correct. We wouldn't lose water because we're not on municipal water, but we need electricity for our pump. Mm-hmm. So otherwise, we're manually pumping water. But worst case scenario is we do what they did in the olden days, and we either carry bales of water up the hill, which we can do, or we build a pump or dig a well or something. I think me and the people here, we've been reading so much about this stuff nonstop for the past 3 or 4 years, 5 years, heck, 10 years, that... Look, we've been saying on this show, get chickens, get some small goats, some the Nigerian dwarf goats or whatever. Get something. Get away from the cities. I've had a lot of people message saying they moved out of the city. They're on well water. They're more sustainable. They've got chickens. Hey, I'll tell you what. If these people who are attacking the power substations succeed, because we've been seeing reports of it all over the country, or North Korea fires an EMP, what you're saying makes the most sense. You want to win a war? You don't need to wipe a city out with massive destructive force. That's a waste of energy. That's a lack of strategy. One EMP disables your opponent, and then you've won. So what will the people in the cities do? Yeah, you're right. They're going to have no water. How many days until they start eating each other and drinking each other's blood?
And again, the marauder threat is something you got to be prepared for, because if you can't defend your preparations and your facilities, the people who aren't prepared, which is the vast majority, will come and take your supplies and your solar systems and all that.
That's right.
But I'm just mentioning a couple threats. We actually track 50 of them, and I'm not sure which one is the worst, but the one that right now is sounding the most alarm bells for us is H5N1 avian flu, because it mutated last year. It's not the same virus, and it's wrong to call it bird flu. It's now bird and mammal flu. That virus is mutating and spreading amongst mammal populations, minks, sea lions, lots of different mammal populations.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.